All right, not bad. We're a minute behind. Mostly, we're going to blame that on Blab. We were sitting here and couldn't figure out how to get it started.
Yeah, we'll blame Blab for sure. But we're recording, so
yeah.
Yep.
And I told a little bird, and I notified some people. So if you're hearing this on the podcast on Monday, what you're hearing is us going live on Thursday or Friday if you're in Southeast Asia, or what do you call your region of the world? Oceania?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oceania.
Okay. Yeah, I'll show you. If you're around there, then we're Friday morning. But either way, we're live right now on Blab. It's kind of a cool new tool. We actually have a bunch of people here, which is kind of cool. So I think the way it works is we can all talk on the right. This is only our second one. If you guys have done a bunch of these,
Yep.
Sorry that we don't know what we're doing.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll run through the news and talk about what's interesting to us. And then we'd love to hear thoughts on either topics that were interesting that we missed, or, whatever, your thoughts on what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool.
Okay. So where do we want to start? It's a little different than a podcast episode, right? Usually we have this little intro, but now we're already going. So let's just jump in. Oh, my name's Chris Chigi. That guy to my right is Andrew Hubbard. And we're the guys at the App Business Podcast. Yeah, we do 3-time-a-week podcasts. And the Monday episode, even though we're recording it today, the Monday episode is a 20 minutes of what's going on in the mobile app marketing, mobile app publishing space. Try to get you caught up and save you some time from having to read all this stuff. We try to distill all the news down into 20 minutes, get your week started right. And the topics for this week, yeah? Andrew, just want me to start rattling them off?
Yeah, start rattling them off. Let's do it.
Oh, here's something coming soon, and I don't know how soon, but I think it's in the next week or two. Is Google Play Music is coming out with a podcast section. So Google Play is going to be supporting podcasts now, which is kind of cool. And so we signed up for that, and we are approved and published. And I went to Google Play Music and tried to find us, and I don't see us yet. But if you're aware of that or interested in that as another place to find or consume the podcast, if that's an easier way to do it, then kind of a cool thing for us is like another place to be,
Yeah. Well, guess what, Chris? I think that was the first time you've told me that you've gone ahead and subscribed us and put us on there. So good work, man.
Yeah, I think I just told you that we were going to or something, right? So
yeah. You mentioned you were planning on doing it, but yeah, so good work.
Yeah, I think it happened this morning or something, but
nice.
Yeah. Okay, so some of the topics we got, I think 4 or 5 or 6 topics here. The nature of these episodes are just real quick hitters on some of these things. Maybe we'll dive in a little bit to some of them. But one of them is talking about, in parentheses, a new app monetization method. And it's not new, it's just unused. But the cool thing here is that there's a pretty cool service out there that does a lot of the thinking and heavy lifting for you. And it's basically email collection and monetizing those emails. And let's see, the service is called Sending.io. And it's an SDK that allows you to, gives you ads to collect emails. And then it gives you kind of a platform for communicating with people. So either retention campaigns or reward campaigns, things like that. I think we're both big believers in the potential of this, even if you don't manage the retention and rewards through their platform. I think collecting emails via mobile is becoming more and more interesting.
Yeah, definitely. This one's unique though, because what they're doing. So what this Sending.io does is they ask a customer in the app to give them the email. If you do that, then the user gets daily rewards or virtual currency or whatever you choose to give them in exchange for the email. But then Sending.io monetizes them by sending them targeted ad units through email. So Sending.io then handles the email marketing campaigns by the sound of it.
So it's not your marketing campaign, it's theirs. They're saying, hey, look, give us your emails. We'll incentivize you for those emails, and then we'll monetize those emails.
We'll monetize them. Yeah, that's what it's saying. So it's saying Sending.io then monetizes those users through highly targeted and effective ad units delivered through email. Now, there's not much more detail in the article that I read.
Right.
But, my assumption would be Sending.io manages it and then maybe sends you a cut. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure, because what happens if two users, if one user signs up on my app with their email address, and then that same user signs up in another app, so Sending.io has just got the same email address twice. How do they handle, splitting revenue there and all that sort of stuff? So tons of questions, but it's an interesting new sort of way. Well, new in quotes. Way of monetizing, I guess.
Yeah, so there are two guys from Stanford that started it. They're not funded, from what I can tell, and maybe they'd be a good target to have on the podcast and explain a little bit more about what they're doing. But if you've ever tried to collect emails and then monetize the emails, there's a lot that goes into it. And I mean, if you're someone who's been in internet marketing for a while, setting up Aweber or MailChimp or Infusionsoft and dialing all that in isn't super difficult. But if you're brand new to it, like understanding, autoresponders and segmentation and just what's your voice? How do you talk to these people? And what do you say when you collect the email? And there's just a lot. Well, for me, it feels like there's a lot that goes into it. And having it all on one platform is, I think, pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And I'm just doing a bit more digging now as we're talking. On Sending.io, and it sounds like you can customize the emails that go to people as well from your through their platform. So that's pretty cool.
Yep,
worth checking them out.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth having them on if they're interested in just explaining a little bit about what they got going on. All right, next item. This was kind of an interesting one. I thought it was a good find by you. Apple's doing interesting things with the way that you interact with Apple, right? So the big news from the last event was that you could get iPhones on a subscription basis. So you still pay AT&T, Verizon carrier fees, and Apple doesn't want to manage that. They don't want to have a big carrier network, but they'd love for you to just have a subscription to the latest iPhone, and then they'll take your old iPhone and deal with that. And basically the way they deal with it is they send it to India or other countries and make money for an older version. And there's a lot there, meaning they don't have to come out with cheaper models or a whole range of models, because the cheaper model is essentially the old model. But kind of related to that is they started doing what Google has been doing for a while, which is allowing iTunes in-app purchases through carrier billing. So it's not through Verizon or AT&T. It's only happening in Germany right now. But it could be a sign of things to come. And, it's another interesting development in these are big, billions of dollars we're talking about. So it's interesting when a new method of spending into that big $1 billion bucket happens, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you came back there, because I didn't know where you were going with that whole sending phones to India thing. So that's good.
Yeah.
But no, so I was
going to say,
just to clarify on the carrier billing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go. Well, what I was saying, just to clarify on the carrier billing, all it means is, and I'm guessing most of the listeners know, but just in case some of you are wondering what we're talking about, it's basically you can buy things like in-app purchases, buy songs through iTunes, whatever, and the billing just shows up on your next phone bill. So rather than it going, rather than needing an iTunes account and a credit card associated with the iTunes account and all that stuff, you just buy whatever you want, and then on your next phone bill, you'll have a charge for your in-app purchases for your music that you bought and all that stuff. So
seems like
just to simplify things.
Yeah, and it seems like a good solution again for parents that are having to deal with having 4 or 5 devices in their house, right, where different people are using it.
Yeah.
Just getting it all in one place is, I bet, is a more convenient approach for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And convenient usually goes hand in hand with higher spending. So that's why these companies have a good incentive to implement things like this.
Oh, I didn't even think about this. The other big thing that it does is create, kind of solidifies a model for Apple, or lets them test out a model where for people who are using devices that aren't on this is going to sound weird, but that maybe don't have credit cards or don't have some of these more modern financial tools that we take for granted in the West, it could be a way for them to say, look, there's a way to get the content you want on your Apple devices. I didn't mean to do this, but it kind of ties back into what I was just talking about with India and the old versions of phones, where a lot of these guys just, are on Wi-Fi or aren't on a data plan necessarily, or on a plan that they're tied with a credit card. And this is a good way to do it, I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point.
And Google's been doing this for a while, so it's not huge, but when Apple does something new, it's newsworthy. So, all right, let's skip over the earnings releases just because those are related, and just hit a news item that happened the other day. It's not even a news item. The head of Google was talking about in their earnings report. There wasn't a whole lot new that they talked about, but one of the things that he kind of just casually dropped was that of all searches, not just mobile searches, according to a couple articles I read further into this, 40% of Google searches are returning indexed results, meaning app indexed results. The idea being, let me say that again. 40% of Google searches return app indexed results in the top 5, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
Now I got it right.
Yeah. You got it right. That's good.
So we knew that mobile get-in, right? That was if your website wasn't mobile friendly, is how they said it, and it was a yes/no answer. If it wasn't, your site would be demoted in search rankings, right? Search results. Yeah. And they talked about how, look, if you index your content too, which is essentially saying, hey, this content that lives on a website also lives in this location in a mobile app, right? That's what app indexing is for Google's perspective. They said, that's going to help your search results. But I didn't think it was super widely adopted, yet 40% of the top 5 have those results. It makes me think that there's a significant weight on indexing your content.
So I think we're talking
you're showing up, right?
I think we're talking a couple of different things though. So the whole mobile get-in, mobile-friendly websites, that's just talking websites as opposed to mobile apps, where this stat here is talking about 40% of searches are showing app indexing results in the top 5, meaning 40% of those searches are showing content from inside mobile apps or suggestions for mobile apps, which is separate to a website that just displays nicely on a mobile phone. So this is actually saying that Google's looking inside mobile apps and pulling out results based on, well, you should check out this recipe app because you just search for a recipe and it's got the recipe that you want. So download the app. Like, that's basically how I'm reading this. So it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Or there wasn't a lot of, it was literally a throwaway statement on an earnings report, right? So there's not a whole lot more depth here, but the statement alone is like, holy smokes, app linking or app links, is that going to be that big or impactful for Google, ranking? So it could mean a couple of things.
Discovery. So it's taking the App Store, it's giving you another huge channel for discovery. Like, you want to show up in those Google results. If 40% of searches are showing apps, you want to be one of those apps getting shown in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So the whole story is Google reported that more. This is a couple months last earnings report. More search happens from mobile devices than from computers or desktops or whatever we're calling these things, right? So that means more people are opening up the Chrome app, right, on their mobile device and searching something than from a desktop. Wow, that's amazing. Now they're saying, and that's why they did the mobile get-in thing, right? Look, if we're going to be showing results on mobile devices, your website has to look good. Now they're saying, look, everyone wants content in apps. And if they have your app installed, why are you going to send them to a mobile website? Or why wouldn't that search result be more valuable to them? If I'm looking for taco recipe and I have my favorite recipe app and I just don't know that it has a taco recipe, then it's going to know that, look, this result is more relevant to me because I have this app installed, right? So it'll return the specific location in an app. And then, of course, to your point, if you don't have the app installed, there's a discovery mechanism where it seems like whether you have the app or not installed, there's still a boost to the rankings because I don't have 5 recipe apps installed, right? 40% of the top 5, right?
But it'll suggest the app with an install button right there, like in the Google results.
Right. So either way, it's huge for mobile apps. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So what can people do to make sure they get discovered, I guess? And you know a bit more about this than me and the whole indexing and all that. But if someone says, okay, cool, I want to be in the top 5 results when people search on Google for whatever my keyword is, how do they do that?
One, you need a mobile app, right? But two,
Bingo.
yeah, you need a mobile app. But two, then you have to tag your web content. So it's not a super pretty process. And the people who are working on your app aren't necessarily people that are managing things on WordPress. And it's not, that's why Branch exists. Branch is that thing that says, look, we'll do your app links for Google. We'll do your Facebook link, your app links for Facebook, even though it's 2 different things. And we'll do your deep linking. What does Apple call it? App links also, right?
We'll just say deep linking for iOS.
Yeah, it's like deep linking. Yeah, and so there's like 3 different unique formats there, all kind of doing different things technically, but for a marketer or for the user, the experience, it does the same thing. It takes you to the specific content you want, and the result is, hey, it's Apple's encouraging you because they want you as a publisher and marketer because they want more content indexed and discoverable in apps, and Google's saying, look, we don't want to get left out of this whole mobile search thing. We'll give you the best content, whether it's on the web or in an app you have or in an app you don't have that you might be interested in. I think it's huge. And we've been talking about this for a while, that we think it's huge. And then we see numbers like this. It's like, hold on, it's already huge. But
yeah, you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
You're getting 500 downloads a day for one app, and most of those are referred from Google. Like, you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Firsthand already, and I think that's just tip of the iceberg. That's probably on the small end to what we're going to be seeing in a few months.
And funny enough, that has nothing to do with app indexing because none of that content's indexed. The only thing that's indexed is the Apple App Store listing, and that's enough to drive that search traffic. So, I mean, that's a huge number, and just because there's not more data behind it is why that wasn't the top story of the week, because there's a throwaway statement, right? But I think as more people share their firsthand experience with this, that's going to be a bigger and bigger subject. So,
definitely. All right, so we skipped a couple. Where do we want to go now? Do we want to talk about Samsung, I guess?
Well, I mean, the Apple and Samsung earnings are interesting, and they're both kind of related. So, go ahead. You do the Apple one, yeah.
All right, so we'll talk about the Apple one. Basically, Apple's results were pretty good. So, Wall Street and everyone happy with their results. But the interesting part of it, I think, was the China story. And basically, Apple reported that revenue for its China segment grew to $12.5 billion. This is for a quarter. We're not talking annually. We're talking for one quarter. The revenue just from China was $12.5 billion, and that's up 99% from the same period a year ago when it reported $6.3 billion. So they've gone from $6.3 billion in the China segment this quarter last year, to $12.5 billion in this quarter this year. So
you know what it was 2 years ago?
That's insane.
You know what it was 8 years ago?
Do you know?
Well, I know roughly. It was roughly zero because they had no presence in China, and that was the story. Was that, hey, is iPhone going to resonate with China, or are they going to prefer the more local brands like Samsung? And no, Apple killed it, and now they killed it again. They doubled their already huge number. So
yeah, and I mean, when you're talking 1 billion people, you don't need a huge percentage of those to create massive numbers for you, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the big drivers of growth were iPhone sales, which jumped 120%, and App Store revenue, which grew 127% year over year. So, you're talking doubling most areas over the year. So, huge market.
This is the year of Apple. I mean, it was shaping up to be the year of Facebook in mobile, and it's hard to take credit away from what Facebook has done. But where Facebook and Apple have thrived and just keep exceeding expectations, I don't want to say the other players, but Windows has fallen extremely flat. Amazon just pulled their phone without much talking about it. And the next kind of news item was, I think it was today or yesterday, Samsung missed their estimates, and they talked about how store over store sales were the same or higher, but revenue was flat. And, basically they tried a lot of things to incentivize the higher end of their product line, and that's one thing with Android is they've established they can win the $50, $100, $150, $200 device market. It's the $600 device market, which Samsung used to do really well in and has their number one brands in. I think the Galaxy is right. Their big thing, their big device. iPhone's just cleaning up everywhere. And, and so, Apple wins and Samsung loses. And it didn't used to be, there's plenty, this is a huge exploding pie. So it's not like there's only going to be, Apple's win is Samsung's loss. It's just that Samsung it makes Samsung's miss look even worse because Apple hit.
Yeah, that's right. So my sort of thoughts on that one, when we start to talk about those figures and who's winning in what area, I think Apple's in a way better position because if we're talking emerging markets and we're talking China in particular and places, in that region, they're emerging, and the thing is the middle class is growing. And as it grows, they move away from those cheaper $100, $200 phones that Android is dominating now. But as the market for those shrinks because the middle class is growing in these regions and they're starting to move to an iPhone, I don't know if Samsung can claw that back. Like once the market shrinks, what do they do then? If iPhone's got the whole middle class, the whole, $600 to $1,000 phone market.
Yeah. Or if it's the aspirational item, right? Like even if they don't own it, like in the US right now, I think that this is a fair statement. The aspirational car right now would be the new Tesla, right? If you got 70 grand, you want that cool new Tesla. You're happy with, there's plenty of BMW and Mercedes people that want that, but just because you're buying a Honda Accord or a Camry or something doesn't mean that you don't really want that Tesla. And I think iPhone has positioned themselves where you want that iPhone. Like you can afford the Samsung product line, but you really want the iPhone. And so much so that you'll buy an old iPhone before you'll buy some Samsung gear, as evidenced by Apple's, buyback program. Essentially, you're always going to have the latest iPhone because we're always going to have a secondary market for old devices.
Well, that's what Apple's so good at, aren't they? Once you're in their ecosystem, it's tough to get out. And I don't think people want to get out. Like they get in, it's great. They've set up a great little internal ecosystem. People stay in, and that's what's interesting. So part of this report from Apple said that more than 50% of people in China who bought the iPhone 6 and 6S were buying their very first iPhone.
Yeah.
So these are brand new, and you know what I mean? So that's just, so you can just think about that base they're building now, and that's just gonna grow.
And that was another point that we didn't really talk about for the earnings report. This is the first earnings report since their announcement of the Apple TV and the Watch, or the kind of the expanded offering for the Watch, mostly software, and the two huge new products, the 6S and 6S Plus. And they said the reports were that they were dominating again, but earnings tell the story, right? They could be dominating and losing money. There's lots of things. Earnings tell that story, and the story is good. Way good, really good. And again, it's just, these are all the things that sometimes they warrant a longer conversation, like a whole episode, or sometimes we do it over a month, like we did with the ad blocking stories, right? Where that consumed like a month. And app links and deep linking, that we're going to talk about that probably every week in some way. But it's also helpful to take a step back and say, how are the big players doing on the 3-year forecast? And you can spot trends that way. And Facebook and Apple there's no signs that either of those engines are slowing down. No,
that's absolutely right. And if you're a developer, obviously you can take cues from that as well. Apple is saying, they said flat out in their report that they expect China to be Apple's top market in the world, in the years ahead. So, if that's not a sign to start considering that as a target market, and start looking at tapping into that, then I don't know what is. Like that's, it's pretty big.
Another one kind of related to that. How long are we here? What are we, 26 minutes in? All right, we got 4 more minutes.
I think we're getting close to the end, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing like that is, the traditional thinking over the last year probably has been, iPad sales or tablet sales in general are slowing down and they're just not the same because everyone keeps trying to compare them to iPhone sales where you refresh your phone every 2 years. And iPads maybe, or tablets maybe mirror the PC market closer than they do an iPhone or a smartphone market. But if you look at Samsung or some of the other tablet producers, you would not invest any development time in a tablet because you think, well, that's dying. But you see Apple doubling down where they're heading into enterprise partnerships with the tablet. Their new MacBook, what is it called? What is their the thing they announced recently? The new
the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks amazing, and it looks like it's going to be a desktop replacement. I mean, in fact, I think they just named the VP of marketing has a shared title for Macs and why do I keep glitching out on the name of the iPad?
Yeah, the iPad Pro.
I don't know how I'm forgetting that. Yeah. So, anyways, that's why it's helpful to step back, is you could totally miss something like, I'm not going to develop anything for the iPad because that's dying. When it's just if you look at the wrong people, it looks like it's dying, but it just doesn't look like it from Apple's perspective or investments or anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
All right.
I think that pretty much. No, I think that pretty much wraps us up. Yeah.
I was going to say, how do we
dig into Samsung?
No, I wanted to ask how we
hit it.
How do we interact with people? Like, how do we say, are we right? Are we wrong? I see a couple familiar names here. How do we get them to say, what are we missing? Or people live? I don't even know how to use this interface.
Yeah. So we've got two figures. When you look at Blab, you can see, like when you're hosting, you can see the total number of people who were in the conversation at some point, and you can see the total number of current people in the conversation. Yeah. So, I mean, it's either way. Anyone who wants to comment just has to type a comment in the comment box, and that's how we just respond to that. It's pretty much it. But it looks like we're pretty quiet at the moment, so we'll probably wrap it up there. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll keep doing this, guys. This is every Thursday at 4:00 Pacific time. There's going to be a time change here in the next couple days in the U.S., so just kind of check your calendars and see what that means to you. But it's always going to be 4:00 Pacific time on Thursdays. And we'll do just like this. We'll do 30 minutes live, see if we can't get some interaction going. I'll get some new topics maybe that we're not hitting. And then, of course, we're going to have the Wednesday and Thursday episodes. This week, we've got a couple of reports we're digging into that should be really interesting. And they're probably going to go back to some basics once a week of we just did a conversation on retention, and I thought that was really good. And it was a reminder that, we want to present news items and dig deeper into some of the reports that come out. But it's good to refresh I don't even want to call them the basics, refresh the essentials. That's really what it is. Like making sure we're talking about the essential components of marketing and publishing for people who haven't listened to 200 episodes,
And I think, well, even so, it's important to refresh because one of these news articles was a perfect example. So we talked about a new monetization method. Like it just shows that we might have covered monetization 6 months ago or, a few months ago, but it's changing so quickly. And all of these things change, like retention. We just covered it. And there are things we covered in that conversation about, techniques to improve retention and that sort of thing that are different to what we would have talked about, months back. Things change over time. So it's definitely good to have these conversations every so often.
Yeah. All right. And so if it's Monday and you're in your car, this is how you get us live. Show up Thursday. Otherwise, we're still here every Monday for you with the news of the week. And thanks to the guys who showed up here on blab.im.
Yep,
and
you guys are awesome.
Yeah. And then thanks for listening if it's Monday, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
See you then.